Welcome families to another family friendly circle time. Today we will be starting off our group with our share and show portion of family friendly circle time. I would like to thank all the families who regularly watch and participate in the activities. I hope that you and your children are having lots of fun, engaging in the art activities that we have provided for you. And I just love getting them pictures sent in, and being able to share it with everybody out there. So thank you very much. For today's sharing, we're going to be doing something a little special. I'm going to be showcasing all of the lovely craft activities that we have done since the start of the very first family friendly circle time that we have made. So we're going to just kind of do a recap and look over some of those activities. And here we go. Welcome everyone. Now you're here, let's have some fun. We'll read a book and make some friends. We'll do an activity and play pretend. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you have come. For today's family friendly circle time, we're going to be reading the book, What Riley Wore by Elena K. Arnold.
What Riley Wore. On Monday, Riley wore a bunny costume because it was the first day of school and Riley felt shy. It was true that no one else in class wore a bunny costume. But it was also true that a girl who was crying asked if she could touch one of the ears. Riley said,
"Yes!"
The ears felt just like real velvet. On Tuesday, Riley wore a superhero cape to the dentist's office because teeth cleaning is scary and Riley wanted to be brave. The dentist asked, "What's your superpower?" Riley said,
"I'll have to get back to you on that."
On Wednesday, Riley wore a ball gown out to dinner with Otto and Oma because they went to a fancy restaurant, and ball gowns are the fanciest. When Riley spilt tomato soup, Oma used ginger ale to blot it out. A kid at another table said they should leave the stain just as it was because it looked like a star, and stars are cool. Thursday was Universe Day at school, so Riley decided that outer space jammies were the perfect thing to wear. Riley's teacher loved the jammies, and he asked Riley to stand on a chair while he pointed out the planets on Riley's back. Then, everyone used scissors and glue and construction paper and made planets of their own. It rained on Friday, so Riley wore a colorful combination of rubber boots, a police officer jacket, and the world's best tutu. The crossing guard told Riley, "I had a pair of rain boots just like that when I was little." The recess captain, a big kid in the 6th grade, told Riley, "I like your tutu." When the weather turned mild on Saturday, Riley dressed in a hard hat and overalls to help Dad run errands. 3 guys at the hardware store called Riley Daddy's Little Helper, and one of them gave Riley a sticker. Riley didn't peel it away from its backing because maybe It would make a good present for a friend someday. When they got home, Riley tucked the sticker away for safekeeping and wondered if being a friend could be a superpower. Sunday was a lazy home day. Riley spent part of it wearing nothing at all. But when Mom asked who wanted to go to the park, Riley put on one striped sock and one polka dot sock. Purple jeans, the world's best tutu, a crazy monster shirt, red rubber boots, round aviator goggles, and a hat with dinosaur spikes. At the park, Riley felt shy. Then a kid from school walked up and asked, "Are you a girl or a boy?" Riley said,
Today I'm a firefighter and a dancer and a monster hunter and a pilot and a dinosaur.
"Oh," said the kid. "Want to play?"
Yes.
Then Riley reached into a pocket, pulled out the sticker, and gave it to the kid. The kid smiled. And Riley felt wonderful. The end.
Hi there. Welcome to the activity part of Family Friendly Circle Time. Yay! So today's activity is inspired by the book we just read.
What Riley wore.
Yeah, so because Riley likes to dress up in costumes and kind of have fun that way, it's kind of suiting that Lachlan today is wearing a wig. He was inspired by Riley's costumes. And for the craft activity, we are going to be making masks.
Wait.
So we have already made this one to give you guys kind of an example. And we thought this would be fun because it's a way that you can kind of do an art activity, but also dress up if you want to and kind of change your identity, which is cool.
Yeah.
This activity does require definitely a little bit of parental help. So I highly recommend that you sit down with your children and kind of engage in the activity with them. And of course, depending on the age of the child, it might require a little bit more of your assistance than if they're a little bit older. Kind of like the other ones, but this one has a couple steps to it as well. It's a two-part activity. For the first part of the activity, the materials you're going to be needing are pencil, okay, a pair of scissors. Now, if you have a child that you feel comfortable doing some cutting and giving them their own pair of scissors, then go ahead and maybe have 2 pairs of scissors on the table and let them go ahead. If you aren't comfortable, if your child is younger and you're not comfortable with them cutting or using scissors yet, parents, you can do the cutting part, but you'll need a pair of scissors. And for the first part, you're going to need a piece of paper. Now, you're really going to need for this a thicker piece of paper. So a thicker kind of craft paper, construction paper, even if you could use like recycled material, like if you cut apart like a cereal box or something like that, that works really well because it's nice and thick and you can kind of use the inside of it to do your craft, so that would work too. But definitely something thicker because once you make your mask, it's if it's just on regular drawing paper, it tends to get a little flimsy and doesn't hold its shape very well. So that's the reasoning for that. For the first part of the activity, you also are going to potentially need like a tray to put your paper in. Like all the other previous videos, we use kind of a tray to contain the mess. So that's handy to have. And you're going to need some watercolor puck paints. Okay, so this is optional. The painting part of it is optional. You'll see when we get on with our demonstration that we are going to be using the crayons and the watercolor puck paints to kind of create that resist that we've done in previous activities. So the scribble tag one and last week's activity with the magic numbers appearing. But feel free, if you don't want to get out the paints for this activity and you feel like, oh, it's too much, just get some crayons and markers and go for it that way too. So the paint is optional. We are going to be using paint for the sake of the demonstration. So definitely some watercolor paint. And with the watercolor paint, you'll need a water, you'll need something to paint with, a paintbrush, and maybe a napkin or a cloth to have handy for a mess. So this is definitely an activity that requires parent and child engagement and working together. Parents, you're going to be doing parts of the activity, and then the children will be doing parts of the activity. So it's kind of something that you do together. And because it's a two-part project, you can choose to do it like, you don't have to do it all in one day. Like maybe this is a project that you do the first part of the activity, and then you kind of clean up, take a break, and maybe bust it out the next day to kind of do the second part of the activity. Or you can do it all in one day too, whatever you choose to do. But it is, you do kind of have to take some time in between because you have to let the paint dry. And you'll see what I mean when we get going. So the first thing you're going to do, parents, is you're going to get your children to put their hands on the paper, and you're going to trace around their hands. And you want their hands, you know, to be not close together. You want their hands to be kind of nice and spread out on the paper. And then you, as the parent, are going to trace their hands. Okay? And you got to try to hold very still. And maybe if they're really little, you just, you know, like Lachlan is keeping both of his hands on the paper right now. But maybe if they're little, you kind of have to do one hand at a time and kind of help them hold their hand on the paper, because sometimes it's hard for little ones to stay still while you're doing this, right? So that's the first step. Now, if you have, if you're doing this activity with babies, like 2 and under, you might want to trace your hands. I mean, you could do it with their hands, but the mask would be very, very small because their hands are very, very small. So if you have a child that's really little, you might want to actually, parents, use your own hand as the background of the mask. But I'll leave that up to you. So here we go. We have our hands traced, okay, nicely on the paper. The next step, if you're choosing to paint, I recommend that you paint before you cut out your hand. It just makes it a lot easier. I find when you paint with the watercolor paint and you've already cut out your fingers, what happens is these little individual fingers that you've cut out, because the watercolor's wet, they tend to curl and do funky things. So if you are going to paint, even if you're going to just draw or use markers or crayons, I recommend doing all the decorating with that kind of material before you cut the hands out. So we're going to go ahead. Do we want to do some crayon drawings before we paint? Okay. So Lachlan and I are choosing to use some wax crayons, and we're going to just kind of do some drawing on the hands before we paint, because then it creates kind of a resist and makes this kind of look where you can see the marks through the watercolor. So if you have some crayons and you're painting, you can go ahead and do that, but it's up to you. You can just use the paint too. Okay, and you know, you can leave, now this could be the part that just your child does. Maybe she or he decorates both of the hands. Parents, you could join in and do some of the decorating too. You could maybe ask your child, like, what could I help? You know, what color should I paint this hand? What color would you like me to do?
Do purple and pink.
Okay. And, you know, this might be a fun opportunity to also kind of play a little bit of game. So you could maybe copy what your child is doing after you ask them what colors they want you to use on one hand. And you kind of see what they're drawing, and maybe you try to do the same sort of pattern. you know, what's fun is that you're kind of letting them lead in the activity and they still have control over it, but you're kind of just doing it there with them, right? Okay, so we've decorated with the crayons now, and now we're gonna go ahead with the watercolor paint and add some colors. And same parents, same as before, if you're doing it with your child, maybe ask them, okay, what color should I paint? You know, what color of paint should I add on here? And then you can help them. So what color should I do on this hand?
Any color you want.
Woohoo! Okay. So yeah, just kind of follow your child's lead in the art activity, kind of see what they're doing and maybe copy what they're doing on your hand. So this is where you now take a break, because before you move on to the second part of the activity, you're gonna have to let the paint dry. So if you decided not to paint and you just were coloring your hands, now's the part where you can kind of just jump right into the second step. Alrighty. So we have taken the time and we let our hands and our watercolor paint dry. So now we're ready for the second step of the mask making activity. Now, like I said before, parents, if your kids are really little and they're not going to be doing any cutting, you might want to, as soon as the watercolor is dry, just do all the cutting for them before you kind of invite them back to do the second part of the activity. If you are working with an older child and they can do the cutting, what I recommend, because I'm here doing it with him, is you can cut the paper in half, or so each one of you has a hand, and then you can do one of the hands and your child can cut out one of the hands. That's how we're going to do it, but if you want to let your child do both hands, that's fine, or if you do both of the hands for them, that's okay too. So you're going to go ahead and cut, and you're just going to follow the lines as best you can. Now, if you're letting your children go ahead and do it and they're just learning how to cut, obviously it might not look so smooth. They might accidentally cut a tip of a finger off, and you know what? That's okay, because it really is about the learning process. So we've cut out our hands. Get rid of the extra paper. What materials are needed for the second part of the activity? So you're obviously going to need your hands that you painted and traced and cut out. You're going to potentially need some white craft glue and a paintbrush for application if you have it. You're going to need maybe potentially some tape. And then other things that you can decorate your mask with. So feathers, okay, pieces of string or ribbon that you have lying around. We have a lot of these sticker jewels and pom-poms. So I just kind of have them cut up into little shapes. So we are going to be using these little sticker gems, which is kind of fun because you don't have to worry about glue so much. Like your child can just take it right off and stick it right on, which is handy.
There's some of these.
Yeah, and we have actual stickers. Yeah. So any stickers you have lying around the house, pretty much any craft material that you have around the house that you can kind of then once the paint's dry, decorate your mask with after. One important thing that you are going to need is some sort of stick, maybe it's a straw or popsicle stick to kind of create the handle for your mask, okay? So we are going to be using these, they're like large popsicle sticks, essentially, or craft sticks. You can get them at the dollar store, I think maybe even at Walmart, but even a regular sized popsicle stick, or I guess it's not really a popsicle stick, I should call it a craft stick maybe, will work. If you don't have that in your house, you could use like a straw. If you have a plastic straw, you could use like a chopstick. So the first step is deciding how you're going to put it together.
That's that?
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
So this is where you kind of invite your child. Maybe you do it flat on the pan, and you invite them to kind of decide how they want their hands to go to create the mask shape. For sticking things together, you could just use the craft glue if that's what you have, or you can use tape. Lachlan and I are actually going to be using both glue and tape to kind of attach things together. The thing about just using glue is it often, if you're doing the stuff on the back, it can take a little while to dry. So once they've decided how they want it, you're going to be doing the glue part on the back side. All right, so Lachlan, you go ahead and put the glue on.
On this side?
Yeah. So Lachlan and I are going to be using glue and tape, and one of the reasons for that is you use the glue and then you just kind of put the tape over top after, because what it does is it allows you to continue working on the craft without having to wait for the glue to dry. But if you don't have tape, that's fine. Yeah, so now you end up with the two hands together, which is going to create the mask. Also the part, parents, where you're going to have to really help your children, because you're going to create the eye holes for them. So what I recommend is that you hold it up to your child's eyes and you kind of get a sense of where that eye hole is going to be on the hand, okay? I like to draw it out before I cut it, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the pencil and kind of, here, let me map those eyes again. Where's your eyeball? Probably there and there. Okay, so, and it's just a guesstimate. It doesn't have to be completely accurate because you can always adjust it like as you cut the eye out as well. Once you kind of have that drawn out, now you're going to do the cutting. I recommend that the parents do this part because it is a little tricky. And how I do it is I kind of slightly bend the paper, but not enough that it creates like an actual crease, but just enough that you can kind of snip and make a little hole to get the scissors into to then cut the eye hole. All right. Okay. So once you kind of have some eye holes cut, you're going to hold it up to their face. And if they can kind of see through the eye holes, you've done a great job. If for some reason they can't really see through it, then you're going to make the adjustments you need to do that. When you're decorating your mask, you're going to be decorating stuff on the front of the mask, but then you're also going to be gluing stuff on the back of the mask, like the feathers or the string, and also the popsicle stick. So what I recommend is that you start with the front of the mask, okay? And start with the things that kind of go on the front of the mask. So start with, like, if you have jewels or stickers.
Put a sticker on the front.
Exactly, the stickers, the pom-poms, things like that. So you're going to get out those materials, and your child and you are going to decorate the mask. Once your child is done decorating the front part of their mask, now's the time you're going to flip it over and you're going to ask them if they want to add any feathers or string. These are the types of things you're going to want to put on the back.
Or just add.
Once your child is done attaching their feathers and maybe some string or yarn if they want, the last step is to attach your handle for your mask. Obviously, you want to be careful not to stick the handle over the eye hole, but anywhere else is fine. So Lachlan, when he wears it, he finds that it kind of bugs his nose, so he's actually just cutting a little bit of the piece out so it goes over his nose.
There, and voila!
Ah, beautiful. So here we go, families. These are our finished masks that we made.
Blah, blah, blah.
I hope you enjoyed today's craft activity. You might have to let all the glue and stuff dry before you get to kind of play around with them. But just, you know, remember, again, there's really no right or wrong way. The masks can kind of turn out however they want. And it's really about engaging in the process and the art making. So have fun. And I would love for you guys to send in any pictures that of the masks that you make with your children or that your children make. And we'll show it on next week's Show and Share. So please send those in. And we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.